Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're looking into something pretty astonishing, really. These claims about the discovery of the Ark of the Covenant.
And related artifacts, yeah, by Ron Wyatt.
Exactly. Now, straight off the bat, you might be thinking, the Ark. Really? And honestly, that's totally fair. It sounds incredible.
It does. And our goal here isn't necessarily to convince anyone or debunk it either, but more to explore what's being claimed, look at the information presented.
Right. We're diving into the sources. We have YouTube videos with Ron Wyatt, Kevin Fisher, Mary Nell Wyatt, others talking about these finds.
So we're trying to unpack the main story. The claim the Ark was found, we'll look at how they say it happened, the evidence they point to, and, what it might all mean.
Okay, so let's start with the man himself, Ron Wyatt. Who was he?
Well, the sources describe him as a nurse anesthetist, actually, from Nashville, Tennessee. A Methodist.
Not your typical Indiana Jones figure, then.
Not at all. Very much presented as an amateur archaeologist. And what's stressed, particularly by Kevin Fisher in the videos, is his motivation.
Which wasn't fame or fortune.
Apparently not. The story goes his prayer was, "Lord, I want to work for you." And specifically to find something that would help someone get to heaven, not for personal glory.
That's quite a starting point.
Yeah.
And this path, supposedly, led him to some pretty major alleged finds even before the Ark.
Oh, yeah. The list is, frankly, amazing. Claims of finding Noah's Ark.
Where was that supposed to be?
Across the valley from Mount Ararat is the description. Then Sodom and Gomorrah, these ashen remains with brimstone, even bone fragments reportedly found.
Okay, what else?
The Red Sea crossing site. They talk about finding chariot wheels, some with metal hubs still detectable, even pillars marking the spot.
Chariot wheels, wow.
And Mount Sinai. Claims of finding the golden calf altar, Moses' altar, seeing a burnt mountain peak, the rock that Moses supposedly split. One speaker actually says these things are plainly in view.
Plainly in view. That seems surprising, if true.
It does. And the time frame for all this, it wasn't overnight, started around 1977, apparently spanned 22 years of his life.
That's a long time and a lot of effort.
Huge effort. The sources mention a significant personal cost. They estimate he spent something like $1 million of his own money.
$1 million?
Yeah, and made about 140 trips overseas. It paints a picture of real dedication or perhaps obsession, depending on your view.
And despite all these supposed world-changing finds, he lived modestly.
That's the picture painted. Passed away in 1999, living in a simple home, which, for proponents, suggests money wasn't the driving force.
Okay, interesting background. But let's focus on the main event for today, the Ark of the Covenant claim.
Right, this is the core of it. Wyatt's belief, presented in these videos, was that he found the Ark buried beneath the area of Christ's crucifixion.
Near the Garden Tomb in Jerusalem.
That's the location cited, yeah. And the story of how he supposedly pinpointed it in 1982 is, well, it's quite something.
Go on.
It apparently starts earlier, 1978. He's near the Garden Tomb, walking with his sons, and suddenly his arm points involuntarily towards the cliff face.
His arm just lifted on its own.
That's the account. And he supposedly said out loud, "There's Jeremiah's grotto and the Ark of the Covenant is in there." His sons were apparently there, saw the whole thing.
Okay, that's dramatic. So that was the trigger.
Seems to be presented that way. The actual digging reportedly started the next year, 1979, and not in some grand location, but at what's described as basically a trash heap against the cliff face.
So digging through garbage.
Yeah, trash, flies, mosquitoes, then hitting solid rock. It sounds like incredibly hard, unpleasant work over several years.
Was there any official permission for this? You can't just dig around Jerusalem, surely.
Good point. The sources do address this. They mention the Israel Antiquities Authority, the IAA website, having records of Wyatt's excavations, finding chambers there in the 80s.
So the IAA knew he was digging.
Apparently so. There's also mention of a letter from a Dr. Bill Shea at the Biblical Research Institute that supposedly confirms Wyatt had a valid dig permit for several years. So there's some claimed external acknowledgement.
Okay, so what did Wyatt say he found when he finally broke through?
He described tunneling, hitting bedrock, and eventually chiseling through into a cave chamber.
And he went in.
Yes, but there's this side story about a small Arab man who was helping him. Apparently, the helper looked into one particular hole or opening inside the cave system, got terrified, screamed, and ran out, refusing to go back.
Any idea what supposedly scared him?
The implication in some accounts is maybe he saw something supernatural, possibly the angels later mentioned, but it's not explicitly stated in what we revealed.
So Wyatt went in alone after that.
That's the story. He crawled into this chamber, which was apparently packed almost full with rocks and debris. And under all that,
The Ark.
he claimed he found the Ark of the Covenant, yes, along with other furnishings from the temple, covered up with animal skins, wooden boards, and more stones. Quite the scene he describes.
Let's talk about the significance of finding it there. Why is that specific location so important in this narrative?
Okay, so you have to remember where the Ark was originally kept. In the tabernacle, then Solomon's temple, it was in the most holy place, the absolute center of worship.
Only the high priest could go in. Once a year, right? Day of Atonement.
Exactly. It was incredibly sacred. Then, 586 BC, the Babylonians destroy the temple. But the Bible lists the treasures they took.
And the Ark isn't mentioned.
Nor are some other key items from the most holy place. That absence is significant. Where did it go?
Which leads to theories about it being hidden.
Precisely. And the sources bring up the book of 2 Maccabees. It's not in the Protestant canon, but it's in Catholic and Orthodox Bibles.
And what does it say?
It recounts the prophet Jeremiah being warned by God before the invasion. He supposedly took the ark, the tabernacle tent, the altar of incense, and hid them in a cave on Mount Nebo.
A cave.
Yes, and sealed it up, saying it shouldn't be found until God gathers his people together again. So this ancient text talks about the ark being hidden in a cave.
Which fits Wyatt's claim of finding it in a cave system near Jerusalem.
It provides a potential historical or scriptural parallel, yes. But Wyatt's claim is even more specific about the location. Not just any cave, but one directly under the crucifixion site.
Golgotha, near the Garden Tomb.
Right, and this is where it gets really theologically charged. Wyatt claimed that when Jesus died on the cross, the earthquake mentioned in the Gospels caused a crack.
An actual fissure in the rock.
Yes, a crack that ran from the cross hole down through the rock and directly above the mercy seat of the ark hidden in the cave below.
So the claim is Christ's blood.
Dripped down through that crack and landed on the mercy seat, the lid of the ark, the place of atonement.
Wow. Okay, the symbolism there is immense.
Absolutely enormous. If true, it connects everything. The sources linked it to Daniel 9.24, the prophecy about anointing the most holy.
Which could refer to the Ark's mercy seat.
That's the interpretation offered. It would signify Christ's sacrifice directly fulfilling and, in a way, replacing the old covenant sacrificial system, ratifying the new covenant right there with his blood on the very seat of the old covenant's atonement.
Psalm 77.13 is also mentioned.
Thy way, O God, is in the sanctuary. Suggesting this precise location, linking the sacrifice and the sanctuary, was part of a divine plan.
It's a powerful narrative, theologically. But what about tangible evidence? That's always the big question with claims like these.
Definitely. And one of the most dramatic pieces of evidence claimed involves that blood.
The blood on the mercy seat.
Yes. Wyatt said he scraped a sample of this dried blood. The story continues that he took it, or it was taken, to an Israeli lab for analysis.
And what did the lab supposedly find?
This is probably the most extraordinary part of the claim. The reported result was unique chromosomes.
Unique how?
23 chromosomes from the mother, identified as Mary, plus 1 single Y chromosome, but from a non-human source.
Meaning, not from a human father.
Exactly. Interpreted as divine origin, making a total of just 24 chromosomes instead of the usual 46. And adding to it, the claim was the blood was somehow still alive when rehydrated.
Alive. After centuries.
That's the claim. Medically and scientifically, that sounds, well, extremely improbable, to put it mildly. But that's the assertion made in the sources.
How did the scientists react according to the story?
Utter shock, asking, whose blood is this? And when told it was the blood of the Messiah they supposedly believed, it's presented as proof of the virgin birth.
Okay, that's a huge claim. What other kinds of evidence are discussed?
There's a lot of reliance on personal testimony, people who knew Ron Wyatt, worked with him, or were related to him.
Like Kevin Fisher, who we hear from a lot in these videos.
Yes. He speaks about his personal relationship with Wyatt. He also shares stories from others, like an email he reads out.
What was that about?
A woman claiming her newborn baby wasn't breathing. Wyatt allegedly prayed, the baby came back to life, and there was some kind of supernatural light in the room. Anecdotal, of course, but used to build a picture of Wyatt.
And his family.
His son is cited as confirming that story about Wyatt's arm being lifted near the garden tomb. And his wife, Mary Nell Wyatt, she speaks about his total conviction.
She believed him completely.
Seems so. She recounts an interesting story, too, about Ron being encouraged by a mysterious figure in the garden tomb area dressed in, like, ancient Jewish clothes.
Any testimony from people involved in the dig itself, besides Wyatt?
Yes, the daughter of a man named Wilbur Bishop, Carolyn G. Bishop, is quoted saying her father held Wyatt dig and claimed he actually looked into the cave, the R cave, right after Wyatt found it.
Okay, so someone else supposedly saw inside.
According to her testimony, yes. And another man, Randy Osborne, he also claims he was part of the dig team and describes the site, specifically the location of the crosshole.
So moving from testimony to more physical things, metal detectors.
Right. They talk about using a specific type, a long-range frequency detector, supposedly tuned for gold.
And did it find anything?
According to the videos, yes. Positive readings for gold right in the area Wyatt indicated. They even showed demonstrations near that alleged crosshole in the garden tomb area.
Suggesting something large and made of gold was down there.
That's the implication, that the readings matched the rough size and location where Wyatt said the Ark was. Though it's fair to say the reliability of those specific types of detectors is often debated.
What about other artifacts? Was it just the Ark he claimed to find?
No, not at all. The list is quite extensive. The table of showbread, the golden altar of incense, the 7-branch candlestick or menorah.
All the famous temple items?
And more. Golden boards, thought to be from the original tabernacle structure. A very large sword, 62 inches, described as maybe like Goliath's.
A sword.
Yeah. And a censer with gold chains, items with bells and pomegranates, which were common decorative motifs on priestly garments and temple items.
Is there anything public? Anything people can see?
Well, there's the story of the ivory pomegranate. Wyatt supposedly found it. It had an inscription, belonging to the temple of Jehovah, holy to the priests.
And where is that now?
He apparently gave it to the Israel Museum, or IAA. It's presented as maybe the only authenticated artifact from Solomon's temple, though there was controversy. It was apparently stolen at one point, then recovered. Its authenticity has also been debated by scholars, separate from Wyatt's claims.
Did Wyatt describe the Ark itself? What it looked like?
Yes, he did offer details. He said the angels, the cherubim on the ends, weren't sitting on the mercy seat, but sort of standing beside it, looking down reverently at the mercy seat itself.
That's a specific detail.
And another one. He claimed there was an open compartment on the back of the Ark containing a Torah scroll, unrolled to the book of Exodus.
Okay. Let's go back to the crosshole you mentioned. What exactly was that supposed to be?
This is presented as the actual socket in the rock where the vertical beam of the cross was placed. Wyatt claimed to identify not just the hole, but also cutouts nearby in the rock face.
Cutouts for what?
For the sign, the titulus that read, Jesus of Nazareth, King of the Jews, in Hebrew, Greek, and Latin, he claimed those specific shelf-like cutouts were visible.
And Randy Osborne, the guy who said he helped dig, confirms this.
Osborne describes the crosshole's location relative to these sign cutouts and an opening into the rock face below. He even tells a story about accidentally breaking off a piece of rock near there, only realizing later it was part of the edge of this crosshole structure.
How deep was this hole supposed to be?
About 24 inches deep, based on their measurements, and crucially, they claim its position lines up perfectly to be directly above where Wyatt said the Ark was hidden in the chamber below.
Reinforcing that blood on the mercy seat idea.
Exactly. It's all interconnected in the narrative.
There was also a mention of Zedekiah's cave. How does that fit in?
Zedekiah's cave is this huge, ancient quarry under the old city of Jerusalem. Tradition says King Zedekiah tried to escape the Babylonians through there.
So the idea is maybe the Ark was taken through there to be hidden?
That's the suggestion, that this existing tunnel system might have provided access to the hidden chamber area. They point to a couple of things inside Zedekiah's cave itself.
Like what?
There's apparently a metal sign in there that mentions a carved cherub found on the wall, which they hint could be related to Jeremiah hiding the Ark.
A cherub carving.
And also, the claim that deep within the cave system, explorers found a man-made wall blocking a passage that seemed to head in the direction of the alleged Ark chamber, implying someone sealed it off intentionally long ago.
Okay, so putting all these alleged pieces together, if he found all this, the Ark, the artifacts, the blood evidence, why keep it secret? Why didn't he bring it out? That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It absolutely is. And the answer given in these sources isn't about logistics or politics primarily. It's about divine timing.
God's timing again.
Yes. Wyatt apparently firmly believed God had a specific plan and schedule for revealing these things. The narrative includes a very significant event supposedly happening inside the chamber,
What was that?
an encounter with angels. 4 of them, according to his account.
Angels in the cave?
That's what he claimed. They tidied up the chamber, helped him, and gave him instructions. They apparently told him to take out the tables of stone, the actual stone tablets with the 10 Commandments, which he claimed were inside the ark.
He took the 10 Commandments out.
He claimed he did, yes, on their instruction, but they also told him the time hadn't yet come to reveal everything.
So when is the time, according to this account?
Specifically, the angels supposedly told him that the tables of stone would be brought out and shown to the world when a law is passed that forces people to transgress God's law.
What kind of law?
It's explicitly linked in the sources to a future global Sunday law, a law mandating Sunday worship, which is interpreted by Wyatt and others in this tradition, particularly Seventh-day Adventists, as enforcing the mark of the beast.
Ah, okay, so it's tied directly into specific end times prophecies, the Sabbath commandment being key.
Very much so. The 4th commandment. They see a future conflict where honoring the Bible Sabbath versus a man-made Sunday law becomes the ultimate test of allegiance.
Are there Bible verses they connect this to?
Yes, Revelation 11:1 is often cited. Then God's temple in heaven was opened, and the Ark of his covenant was seen within his temple. They interpret this as potentially having an earthly correlate, a future event where the Ark, or at least the commandments, become visible globally.
And the blood.
That's linked to 1 Timothy 2.56, about Christ giving himself as a ransom, a testimony at the proper time. The idea is the blood evidence will be part of that future testimony.
They even connected to current events. You mentioned climate lockdowns.
Yeah, there's speculation in some of the commentary we watched that things like potential climate lockdowns could morph or pave the way for laws restricting freedom, eventually leading to Sunday enforcement. It ties the prophecy into contemporary anxieties.
It's a very specific and dramatic prophetic scenario. Understandably, people are skeptical. The sources acknowledge that, right?
Oh, definitely. They know the Ark claim sounds, as one speaker put it, potentially over the top, even compared to Wyatt's other finds like Noah's Ark or Sodom.
How do they counter that skepticism?
Sometimes by drawing a parallel, saying, well, people doubt the book of Revelation too, but that doesn't make it untrue. Basically, don't dismiss something just because it sounds incredible.
And the lack of photos, videos,
Oh.
the hard proof.
The consistent answer is, Ron Wyatt didn't release it because he believed God told him not to. It wasn't time. Mary Nell Wyatt even says Ron was heartbroken that he couldn't share it yet. He wanted to, but felt bound by divine instruction.
It comes back to trusting his account, essentially.
Largely, yes. And this idea that God often uses ordinary people. Wyatt, being a nurse, an amateur, is framed not as a weakness in his credibility, but as evidence that it must be God working because he wasn't professionally qualified in the world's eyes.
It's interesting how consistent the story is across the different people presenting it, though they are all drawing from Wyatt's core claims.
That's true. The details about the dig, the blood, the angels, the timing, they form a very cohesive narrative, even if it is, an extraordinary one.
Okay, so let's try to wrap up this deep dive. We've walked through Ron Wyatt's incredible claims, finding the Ark of the Covenant under the crucifixion site.
We looked at the sequence of events he described, the different kinds of evidence presented, the blood analysis, testimonies, metal detection, other artifacts.
And the profound theological significance tied to that location. Christ's blood on the mercy seat, the connection to covenants, and this whole idea of a future revelation.
A revelation specifically linked to the tables of stone, the 10 Commandments, and potentially tied to future global events like a Sunday law, viewed as the mark of the beast.
Right, so the final thought we want to leave you with is this. Just pause and consider. What if? What if these claims, as extraordinary as they sound, were actually true?
What would that mean for faith, for understanding the Bible, for the urgency of the times we live in, as these sources suggest?
It really forces you to think about how you evaluate claims like this. What's your own standard of evidence when something challenges your worldview so profoundly?
The sources encourage more research, mentioning sites like ursisdiscovery.com. As always, we just encourage you to use your own discernment, look into things for yourself.
Because ultimately, according to this narrative, the story isn't over. There's this sense of anticipation built into it, a feeling that major events related to these alleged discoveries might still be ahead.
Definitely leaves you with something to think about.
Thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive.